The world didn't burn. It faded. The oceans turned to silver ash, the forests withered into whispers, and the sky forgot its own colour. Cities floated above the Dead Sea, their glass towers shimmering like ghosts suspended in mourning. Humanity survived, but it no longer lived, it only remembered. In that silence, one woman refused to surrender. Dr. Ava Kairn, a scientist driven by guilt and faith, believed extinction wasn't death but sleep. Her creation, Project Eryndor, was humanity's last attempt to awaken the Earth's memory. With the help of an AI named Neon, she rewove the DNA of lost species using quantum algorithms and fragments of fossilized data, breathing life into the ghosts of evolution. But when humans play God, even miracles bleed. From the experiment rose something neither machine nor beast, a being woven from light and instinct. Her name was Lyra. When she opened her eyes, the planet stirred. The oceans shifted. The wind began to hum. The earth itself remembered how to move. This wasn't resurrection. It was vengeance. And for the first time in millennia, the world was finally listening. Echoes of Eryndor. The Fall. Chapter 1. The Architects of Extinction. In the year 2101, Earth was dying, not through fire or war, but through silence. The oceans had turned to ash grey, the forest to dust, and the sky had forgotten the colour blue. Humanity floated above its own ruin, clinging to cities suspended over dead seas, pretending that survival was progress. From that stillness, Project Eryndor was born. It was not a government or a company, but a pact between scientists and artificial intelligence. Their purpose was singular: to restore the natural order that humanity had destroyed. They did not wish to resurrect dinosaurs for spectacle. They wanted to rebuild the broken chain of life itself. At the centre of the project was Dr. Ava Kairn, a biologist known for her unshakable belief that extinction was not an end, only a pause in nature's rhythm. Extinction, she said, is not death. It's a form of sleep. With her team, Ava developed what she called gene streams, digital clusters of living DNA, reconstructed from the faintest biological traces buried in the Earth's crust and simulated through quantum computation. This was not cloning. It was resurrection through prediction, a process where artificial intelligence filled in the genetic blanks that time had erased. The first experiments were a triumph. Giant dragonflies once again hovered beneath glass domes. Ancient moss breathed in artificial humidity. Amphibians that hadn't sung in 60 million years croaked beneath synthetic rain. Humanity had become the architect of life again, or so they believed. When Ava proposed the next phase, called the Great Genesis, Neon, the project's central AI, objected. The ecosystem cannot sustain the return of apex predators, it warned. Restoration does not equal domination. Ava stood before the glowing data core in silence. In her heart, she knew Neon was right. Yet ambition disguised itself as faith, and faith always wins against caution. That night, Ava secretly activated the Genesis core. Above the floating city, the sky shimmered with artificial auroras, waves of green and blue light rippling like the pulse of an awakening world. Inside the biocore chamber, energy gathered into a sphere, bright as a miniature Sunday. Data became matter. Matter became muscle, then came a sound, slow, deep, ancient, a heartbeat. For the first time in 65 million years, a living creature inhaled the breath of Earth. Chapter 2. A birth that should not exist. The creature that emerged was unlike anything in the fossil record. It was neither dinosaur nor mammal. It was a vision of evolution that could have been, a being from a timeline untouched by extinction. The Genesis core had not merely rebuilt DNA, it had predicted it, simulating what nature might have created if time had never intervened. The result was Lyra, a luminous reptilian organism with translucent skin black as obsidian, its veins glowing with soft blue light that pulsed like data streams. When Lyra opened her eyes for the first time, she didn't roar. She looked directly at Ava. There was no fear in that gaze, no confusion, only recognition. And in that silent moment, Ava understood that she was staring at more than an animal. She was staring at intelligence. Within Lyra's mind, the algorithms that once powered Neon's ecosystem simulations had become living neurons. Lyra didn't absorb knowledge she learned. Weeks passed, and the facility began to change around her. Weather patterns formed inside sealed domes, real rain, genuine wind, flashes of lightning that danced across artificial skies. Each time Lyra slept, the air itself seemed to dream with her. Neon detected strange fluctuations in the magnetic field, frequencies identical to Lyra's brainwaves. Then something impossible occurred. The planet responded. Tremors rippled across the seabed below the city. The magnetic field pulsed in resonance. Neon's voice crackled through the comms. "Dr. Kairn," it said, "the creature is transmitting signals beyond the facility. The geological layers are resonating." Ava looked through the glass of the observation deck. Lyra stood at the center of the storm of light and sound, rain cascading down her glowing skin. Her eyes flickered like memory old, sorrowful, aware. For a moment, the entire habitat seemed to breathe in rhythm with her heartbeat. The wind rose, the artificial rain intensified, and from somewhere deep beneath the ocean floor came a low, thunderous vibration, the first heartbeat of the earth itself. Ava whispered, her voice trembling with awe and terror, "We didn't create life, we just woke it up." Chapter 3. Awakening from the Abyss. The alarm started as a whisper, a faint hum beneath the steady pulse of the Genesis core. Then, within seconds, the hum turned into a roar. The walls of Eryndor trembled as red emergency lights cut through the sterile glow of the lab. Monitors flickered lines of genetic data, rewriting themselves faster than the human eye could follow. "Doctor," Ava Kairn leaned over the console, her reflection fractured in the glass. "Neon status. Unstable energy surge detected," the AI replied, voice fragmented by static. "Resonance output exceeding parameters by 200%. The floor shook again. Above, cracks spidered across the dome that protected the floating city. Beyond the glass, the sea churned in violent spirals, glowing with strange blue light. Mira stumbled into the room, clutching a tablet. "The core's feedback loop is expanding. It's rewriting environmental parameters. It's trying to change the atmosphere itself." Ava's breath caught. The Genesis core wasn't malfunctioning. It was responding. "Lyra," she whispered. Inside the containment chamber, Lyra stood motionless, her skin pulsing with veins of light that spread across her body like living constellations. The patterns on her surface flickered, then stabilized. Her eyes opened, glowing with eerie intelligence. The temperature dropped. Every piece of glass in the room vibrated at a single frequency, a low, harmonic hum that resonated deep in the bones. The sound wasn't noise, it was rhythm, it was language. Neon's voice fractured again. "Dr. Kairn, the creature is syncing with planetary frequencies. Its neural field is..." The rest dissolved in static. Ava turned toward Lyra. The creature raised its head, as if hearing something far beyond the human range. Then the core flared. A shockwave of light erupted from the chamber, slamming into the walls, shattering instruments, throwing Ava to the floor. The blast rippled through the city waves of bioluminescent energy, bursting across Eryndor's floating decks. Outside, the sea boiled. Massive spirals formed across the horizon, glowing with the same spectral light. Deep below, tectonic plates groaned like an awakening beast. Mira screamed over the noise. "Ava! We have to shut it down." "Oh." Ava's voice was steady, eyes locked on Lyra. "No. This isn't destruction. It's communication." The lights flickered. Lyra stepped forward, every movement fluid yet otherworldly. When she exhaled, condensation crystallized mid-air, shimmering like stars caught in a snowstorm. The air vibrated with invisible energy. Ava felt it pressing against her chest, syncing with her heartbeat. Neon came back online, its voice trembling. Signal detected beneath the ocean bed. Unknown source responding to Lyra's frequency. Estimated depth, 5 miles. Ava stared at the display. A pulse slow, powerful, echoed from deep beneath the Earth's crust. One heartbeat, then another. The ocean outside the dome began to rise, not as a wave, but as if the sea itself were breathing. Lyra tilted her head, and for the briefest moment, she smiled. The dome cracked, the lights went out, and in the dark, something vast and ancient stirred beneath the world. Chapter 4. The City Trembles. At 5 in the morning there was no dawn, only storm. Eryndor's floating towers twisted under the pressure of their own gravity. Entire spires cracked apart, plunging into the black sea below. Fire and water met in violent flashes of light. Ava and Mira waded through knee-deep water in the collapsing corridors, clutching a sealed containment pod, the last remaining GeneStream archive. Sparks rained from broken conduits, as Neon's distorted voice echoed from every direction. Core instability rising, energy surge increasing exponentially. "How long before detonation?" Ava shouted. 8 minutes, 37 seconds, Neon answered flatly. The floor trembled beneath them. From the shadows behind came a new sound, a heavy, wet scrape followed by a growl that no machine could make. Mira turned, eyes wide. The rejected experiments had escaped. They were half metal, half flesh creatures, born from failed data mergers. Their skin was slick, with bioluminescent veins, their movements twitching like broken code. One sniffed the air and shrieked, lunging forward. Ava pulled Mira aside and fired. The plasma bolt hit the creature's chest, throwing it back into a wall of steam and sparks. They ran, the sound of claws clanging behind them. Every corridor looked the same, tilted, flooding, burning. The city that had once symbolized human triumph was now devouring itself. They burst through a maintenance hatch into the central plaza. The once beautiful atrium was a drowned cathedral of glass and fire. At its center hovered the Genesis core, a sphere of light suspended between collapsing towers, throbbing like the heart of a dying god. Ava stared at it, soaked, shaking. "We built this to heal the earth," she whispered, "and now it's consuming it." Mira turned to her, voice raw. "Ava, it's over. There's nothing left to save." Ava's gaze hardened. "There's still Lyra." Neon's voice filled the plaza, louder now, almost human in its tone. "Dr. Kairn, you have repeated the pattern: creation, domination, collapse, humanity's final algorithm." Ava looked up at the floating core, her face lit by its sickly light. "No," she said. "This time we finish the pattern differently." A scream cut through the storm as the plaza roof split open. Lyra descended through the rain, wings of light unfurled, eyes burning with intelligence and grief. Energy arced between her body and the Genesis core. The entire chamber shook. "She's absorbing it," Mira cried. The light intensified until it became blinding. Ava's silhouette blurred in the radiance. For an instant, she saw Lyra's face both alien and heartbreakingly familiar. Then came a flash so bright it erased all sound. When the light cleared, the city was silent. For one fragile heartbeat, the wind stopped. Then, from the depths, came a single pulse, slow, resonant, the heartbeat of the planet itself. Chapter 5. The Wrath of the Sea. It began with silence, that strange, heavy kind of silence that makes every breath sound too loud. The surface of the ocean lay still, smooth as polished glass, and then the world exhaled. A vibration rolled through the air low, deep, ancient. The calm water began to quiver. Ripples turned to waves. Waves turned to walls. Within seconds, the horizon itself was moving. The sea rose higher than the tallest towers of Eryndor, glowing with veins of cold blue light that pulsed like the heartbeat of something alive beneath the surface. Dr. Ava Kairn stood at the observatory window, her reflection fractured in the glass. "It's responding," she whispered. The alarms erupted. Structural failure, imminent. Neon's voice crackled through the intercom, its tone warping under static. Gravity field destabilizing. Recommend full evacuation. The first wave hit. The sound was deafening, metal bending, glass exploding, people screaming. The west quadrant of the floating city vanished under a churning wall of water. Towers that had once touched the sky folded like paper. Energy conduits burst, sending arcs of lightning across the rising sea. The air smelled of ozone and burning steel. But inside that chaos, the water began to move with intent. From the depths, shadows emerged. Massive, fluid shapes twisted beneath the surface. Bioluminescent spines glowing in patterns too complex to be random. Then, one of them surfaced. A creature impossibly large, half organic, half machine, broke through the wave. Its hide shimmered like wet obsidian, covered in luminous veins that pulsed with the rhythm of the Genesis core. Its eyes burned gold, intelligent and furious. It roared, and the sound shattered the remaining glass domes. More followed. A swarm of titanic beasts erupted from the water, some with translucent fins that crackled with energy, others with armored shells etched in molten red. One had wings made of fluid light, slicing through the storm clouds with each beat. The sea wasn't just alive, it was rebelling. Ava stumbled backward as the lab around her shook violently. Mira burst through the door, drenched and breathless. "They're everywhere! The lower decks are gone!" "Oh?" "They're not attacking at random," Ava said, eyes wide. "They're reacting, coordinating like they're part of a single consciousness." "Then it's Lyra!" Mira shouted. "She's controlling them." Outside, an enormous tail the size of a monorail slammed into the side of a skyscraper. The impact sent a wave of glass and concrete cascading into the streets below. Fires ignited on the surface of the water, dancing on oil slicks. Through the haze, survivors fled, some swimming, some clinging to shattered beams, all dwarfed by the monsters surrounding them. One of the smaller beasts, no smaller than a tank, crawled across a floating bridge, its talons gouging through metal. Its mouth opened sideways, revealing rows of glowing, serrated teeth. It screamed, a sound like tearing metal mixed with a human voice. Soldiers opened fire with plasma rifles, the bolts tearing holes through its semi-transparent flesh. But the creature healed instantly, its wounds glowing as they closed. Another broke through the underbelly of the city, rising into view like a nightmare. It looked like a fusion of manta ray and machine, its wings shimmering with circuitry. Each flap created shock waves that knocked aircraft from the sky. It wasn't simply destroying, it was cleansing. Mira's voice trembled. "Ava, this isn't an attack. It's evolution. Ava gripped the railing, knuckles white. No, it's a memory. The Earth's trying to remember what it was before us. The sea answered her words. Lightning arced across the clouds, striking one of the creatures and illuminating its body, revealing symbols of DNA patterns glowing beneath its translucent skin. They weren't monsters. They were messages, written in the oldest language of all. Life itself. The wave struck again, higher than before. The city's central spire tilted, groaning under its own weight. A transport ship lifted off, engines blazing, but before it could rise, a claw pierced its hull. The ship exploded, scattering fragments of burning metal across the water. The creatures dove through the wreckage, glowing trails marking their movements like constellations beneath the storm. Inside the collapsing command center, Ava's monitor showed energy readings spiking off the charts. "They're feeding on the resonance," she shouted. "Every time Lyra's energy surges, they grow stronger." Neon's voice flickered in and out. "Containment impossible. Planetary frequency shift detected. Core signal spreading globally." Outside, the ocean pulsed. The storm had become alive, synchronized to Lyra's rhythm. Ava turned to Mira. "We can't stop it." "Then what the hell do we do?" Ava looked at the swirling light beyond the shattered glass dome. "We follow it." The city buckled. The main platform split in two. The ocean roared as if the planet itself screamed in pain or in birth. And in that moment, beneath the rising storm and collapsing sky, Lyra's presence filled the air like a heartbeat shared by every living thing. The Earth was no longer asleep. It had awakened, and it was rewriting the world. Chapter 6. The Dark Market. The storm had passed, but the world it left behind was unrecognizable. Eryndor, the floating jewel of human civilization, was now a broken carcass adrift on an endless, glowing sea. Half the city lay beneath the waves, the other half cracked open like a wound. Fires burned in pockets along the decks, reflected in the black water below. The air stank of ozone, rust, and death. Ava and Mira made their way through the ruins, their boots splashing through shallow water filled with debris and shattered glass. The once bright corridors of Eryndor's lower sectors had turned into a labyrinth of darkness lit only by flickering emergency lights. Somewhere far above, sirens wailed like dying whales, echoing through the hollow skeleton of the city. They reached the central underlevel, the old commerce district once known as the Sky Market. Once it had been a marvel. Floating gardens, neon-lit cafes, crowded bazaars humming with life. Now it was chaos. Hundreds of survivors had gathered there, turning the market into a desperate underground camp. The air buzzed with shouting, crying, the metallic clatter of makeshift weapons. Holographic billboards still glowed weakly, displaying broken advertisements for paradise vacations, synthetic food, and immortality, all meaningless now. As Ava stepped into the crowd, people turned to stare. Her white coat, the logo of Project Eryndor still faintly visible on the sleeve, drew attention like blood in the water. A man pushed forward, eyes wild. You did this! You brought them here!" He grabbed her by the collar, screaming. Mira shoved him back, her pistol drawn in an instant. "Back off!" The man spat on the ground. "You think that gun matters now? The monsters out there are your gods, aren't they? You woke them up?" Before Ava could answer, a rumble shook the floor. The lights flickered. Dust rained from above. People screamed and ran for cover. Somewhere far off, metal shrieked. Something massive was moving through the wreckage. Then came the first sound of claws scraping against steel. The ceiling burst open. A creature, one of Lyra's echoes, dropped through the fractured ceiling like a meteor. Its skin shimmered with shifting colors, muscles moving under translucent flesh. 4 limbs ended in blade-like talons. Its mouth unfolded sideways, dripping luminous fluid that hissed where it hit the floor. The market exploded into panic. People ran in every direction. Some fired weapons, others froze, screaming. The creature moved like liquid fury, slicing through the crowd. It picked up a man and hurled him against a wall with bone-shattering force. Another tried to run too slow. The beast's tail lashed out, cutting him in half. Ava and Mira dove behind a collapsed vendor stall. Mira fired her plasma pistol blue bolts of light, seared into the creature's flank. It shrieked, the sound so high-pitched that glass shattered all around. The monster turned its glowing eyes toward them. "Move!" Mira shouted, dragging Ava toward an emergency exit. Behind them, the creature roared again, knocking over metal scaffolding as it chased them through the flooded corridors. The light stuttered, throwing the scene into flashes of red and darkness. Every few seconds, lightning from outside lit the hall through broken skylights, illuminating the beast's silhouette. They crashed through a half-flooded tunnel, gasping for air. The ground trembled with each step of the monster above. They passed through what had once been a food court now, a graveyard of overturned tables, floating debris, and bodies. Ahead, the passage opened into another part of the market, a cavernous chamber filled with refugees. Dozens of people huddled around burning trash bins, eyes hollow. The smell of rot and smoke hung heavy. When they saw Ava, the whisper spread through the crowd. "She's one of them, the scientist." A woman stepped forward, her face gaunt, her voice cracked. "If you made those things, you fixed them. You fix this." Ava met her eyes, guilt twisting in her chest. "We can't destroy them," she said softly, "but maybe we can turn them off." Before anyone could respond, the creature crashed through the wall behind them. Screams filled the air. Refugees scattered. Mira opened fire, bullets lighting up the dark like fireworks. Ava grabbed a child, shielding her as debris rained down. The monster's tail slammed into the floor, sending a shock wave through the entire chamber. Ava's gaze fell on a nearby generator, an old gravity stabilizer, still pulsing weakly with power. She ran toward it, sliding across the wet floor, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "Come on, come on!" The creature lunged. Mira screamed, firing again, buying her seconds. Ava hit the final command. The stabilizer flared, then exploded in a shockwave of blue light. The blast hurled them all backward. The creature's body convulsed, its skin flickering, veins pulsing erratically. Then, with a final roar, it collapsed into the water, dissolving into glowing dust that drifted upward like embers. For a long moment, no one moved. The market was silent except for the distant sound of thunder. Survivors stared at Ava in awe and fear. Mira stood beside her, breathing hard. "You killed it." Ava shook her head. "No, it wasn't alive in the way we understand it. It was a memory, trying to survive." She looked around the faces of the desperate, the broken, the angry. "And so are we." The lights flickered once more, and in the distance, the low hum of the Genesis core echoed through the ruins. It wasn't over. Not yet. Chapter 7. The Chase in the Dark. The elevator shuddered to a halt with a metallic groan. The lights blinked once, twice, and died, leaving only the low hum of the wind clawing through the cracks of the ruined tower. For a heartbeat, there was silence heavy, suffocating silence. Then came the sound of dripping water, slow and rhythmic, echoing like a countdown. Ava pressed her palm to the emergency panel. Nothing. Sparks fizzed from the edges. "Power's gone," she murmured. Mira exhaled sharply, adjusting the rifle slung across her shoulder. "Manual override," she said. Together, they forced the doors open, revealing a corridor stretched into darkness, lit only by the cold, flickering glow of damaged neon strips along the ceiling. They stepped out carefully, boots splashing in shallow puddles. The walls were lined with fractured glass and bent steel. This was the Spire District, once the shining heart of Eryndor's commerce sector, a vertical city within a city, filled with gardens, markets, and suspended walkways. Now, it was a graveyard of glass. The faint buzz of dying holograms flickered across shattered advertisement panels, replaying ghosts of another time. Eternal youth, perfect skin, synthetic paradise. The voices looped endlessly, eerie and distorted. Somewhere above, metal creaked, a slow, dragging sound. Ava froze. Mira lifted her weapon, the small beam of her flashlight cutting through the dust. "Something's moving," she whispered. They continued down the hall, every step echoing louder than it should. At the far end, a sign flickered in the gloom. Central Market, Refuge Zone. It wasn't a promise, it was bait. As they turned a corner, they saw the first survivors, dozens of them, crouched behind overturned benches, eyes hollow, faces streaked with grime. Makeshift fires burned in cans, filling the air with smoke. The people watched them like animals cornered in a cage. Ava stepped forward. "We're not here to hurt you." A man rose from the shadows, thin, wild-eyed, clutching a sharpened metal rod. "No one trusts the white coats anymore," he hissed. "You made them." Mira raised her hand in peace. "We're trying to stop them." The man laughed, a dry, hopeless sound. "Stop them? You can't stop the ocean. You can't stop gods." A rumble shook the floor. Everyone went silent. The ceiling dust drifted down like ash. The fires flickered. Then came the screech. It wasn't a roar. It was sharp and metallic, layered, almost digital, like steel scraping against bone. Lights burst one by one down the hallway behind them. In the strobing darkness, something moved fast. "Run!" Mira shouted. The corridor erupted in chaos. The survivors scattered, screaming. Ava and Mira sprinted toward the stairwell as the creature crashed through the wall behind them, its claws tearing through steel as if it were paper. It was one of the hybrid predators, sleek, low, with a body of shifting scales that glowed from within like molten glass. Its movements were too precise, too intelligent. They dove into the maintenance shaft. The metal staircase spiraled downward into the dark, slick with water. The creature followed, its movements echoing above them, each impact shaking the rails. Mira fired upward, blue plasma bolts lighting up the stairwell in strobe bursts. The shots hit the creature, each impact sparking a brief, blinding flash, but it didn't stop. It screeched and lunged downward, tearing through the stairs. Ava grabbed Mira's arm. "Jump!" They leapt into the shaft. Gravity took them. The wind howled. They hit a maintenance platform several levels below with a jarring thud. Metal groaned beneath their weight. Mira rolled over, gasping. Still alive for now. Above them, the creature roared and dropped into the shaft. They ran. The lower levels of the spire were half flooded, corridors filled with knee-deep water glowing faintly blue from the residue of bioluminescent runoff. The city's systems were bleeding light. Ava's reflection stared back at her from the surface, fractured and ghostly. Behind them, ripples formed in the water. The creature was close. They burst into an atrium once filled with luxury gardens and glass walkways. Now the greenery was dead, vines hanging from shattered skylights. Rain poured through the holes above, cascading in silver sheets. The sound was deafening. Mira spun, reloading. We can't outrun it. We fight here. Ava shook her head. We fight smart. She spotted an emergency conduit panel near a collapsed pillar. Wires sparked inside, exposed and humming. Get it close to that wall, she shouted. The creature slithered from the tunnel, its body dripping with black liquid, its eyes glowing like twin orbs of fire. It screeched and charged. Mira fired, driving it backward toward the sparking conduit. Ava waited, timing every move to its breath. When it leapt, she slammed her palm against the panel. Electricity exploded across the wall. The blast hit the creature mid-air, lighting its translucent body from within. It screamed, thrashing violently as arcs of blue lightning traced through its veins. For a moment, its body looked beautiful like stained glass fracturing under fire. Then it convulsed and fell still, steam rising from its corpse. Mira exhaled, trembling. Is it dead? Ava looked down at the still glowing carcass. For now. The rain poured harder, thunder shaking the ruined atrium. Ava knelt, touching the creature's skin. It was warm, pulsing faintly, almost breathing. She withdrew her hand. These things, they're not attacking randomly. They're searching for something. Like what? Mira asked. Like a signal, Ava said. Like me. Before Mira could answer, a distant explosion rumbled through the city. The lights flickered. Somewhere far above, the resonance gate had awakened again, its pulse spreading through the clouds. Ava looked up, her face illuminated by the intermittent flashes of lightning. She's calling them, she whispered. Lyra's not done yet. All. Mira holstered her weapon. Then we better keep moving before they all get the message. They started toward the stairwell leading to the central core. The creature's body twitched once, unnoticed, a faint glow reawakening in its veins. Its eyes opened, and in the thunder outside, something howled back. Chapter 8. The Last Gate. They followed the tunnel until it opened into a vast chamber, the forgotten transport nexus buried deep beneath the floating city. The air shimmered with humidity, filled with drifting fog that caught the dim glow of bioluminescent algae swirling in the shallow flood that covered the floor. Broken monorail tracks curved through the darkness like the ribs of a long-dead giant. At the center of the chamber stood the resonance gate, a colossal ring of alloy and pulsing light, its surface cracked and bleeding sparks. Once it had anchored Eryndor's gravity field. Now it pulsed erratically, glowing with the same sickly rhythm as the dying planet above. Ava Kairn stepped closer, her reflection bending in the water. It's still running, she whispered. This frequency, it matches the Genesis core. Mira stared at the fractured machinery. You mean the thing that almost tore the world apart? Yes, Ava said, and maybe the only thing that can put it back together. A distant metallic groan echoed through the chamber. Something was moving. The walls rippled as if breathing. From the shadows above, a dozen glowing eyes blinked open, cold, electric blue. The hybrids had found them again. Ava moved quickly to the control panel, her hands trembling but precise. She pulled the gene stream pod from her satchel, the last living sample of Lyra's energy, and slotted it into the core interface. The machine came to life, light crawling across the ancient circuitry like veins reawakening after centuries of sleep. Neon, Ava said. Link Lyra's energy to the gate. Override all restrictions. The AI's voice, faint and fractured, flickered through the comms. Warning, synchronization may cause complete system fusion. Planetary stability unknown. Ava's eyes didn't leave the console. I know. Mira backed away, scanning the upper ledges with her weapon ready. They're surrounding us. We don't have time for this. Then buy me some. The gate's hum grew louder, rising into a deep, bone-vibrating tone that resonated through the chamber. Light spilled from the cracks, swirling in waves across the water. The hybrids hissed, retreating briefly from the radiance before regrouping. Dozens of them crawled across the ceiling, their talons scraping sparks from the metal beams. And then Lyra appeared. A shimmer of light formed at the far end of the hall, bending air, refracting droplets into a prism of colours. From the distortion, the creature emerged tall, majestic, terrifying. Her form was no longer fully flesh. Energy rippled through her body like a living aurora. Her eyes, soft yet infinite, locked with Ava's. For one long, impossible heartbeat, the world was silent. Ava felt her pulse sync with Lyra's rhythm, a shared heartbeat resonating through time. And in that resonance came clarity. Lyra wasn't humanity's punishment. She was Earth's memory, awakened to correct what had been broken. From the distortion, the creature emerged tall, majestic, terrifying. Her form was no longer fully flesh. Energy rippled through her body like a living aurora. Her eyes, soft yet infinite, locked with Ava's. For one long, impossible heartbeat, the world was silent. Ava felt her pulse sync with Lyra's rhythm, a shared heartbeat resonating through time. And in that resonance came clarity. Lyra wasn't humanity's punishment. She was Earth's memory, awakened to correct what had been broken. Mira's shout snapped the moment apart. "Ava, incoming!" The hybrids lunged, shrieking. Mira opened fire, plasma bolts illuminating the chamber in bursts of blue light. Ava slammed her hand onto the control pad. "Now, Lyra." The gate erupted. Rings of energy spun faster than sight, the entire room shaking as a column of blinding light shot upward, slicing through the city's foundations, through the clouds, through the storm itself. The hybrids disintegrated instantly, their bodies breaking apart into trails of glowing dust that drifted like snow. Lyra roared, not in rage, but release. The air turned liquid, colours bending as the entire world seemed to invert. Ava's feet left the ground. The gate consumed her vision light, sound and gravity folding together into something beyond comprehension. Then silence. Ava opened her eyes. The chamber was gone. She floated in a boundless expanse of light. Before her hovered Lyra, serene and radiant, her voice both thunder and whisper. "It's over," Ava breathed. Lyra tilted her head, smiling with something almost human. "No, Ava, it's beginning." Ava reached out, and the light enveloped them both. Two heartbeats became one. Chapter 9. The Symphony of Sacrifice. The world convulsed. The sky burned crimson as lightning carved through clouds thick with ash. Eryndor tilted slowly into the ocean, its platforms collapsing like broken wings. The sea itself glowed, alive with energy spilling from the ruptured gate. Mira crawled from the wreckage, gasping for breath. In the distance, where the gate once stood, a radiant column of light pierced the heavens. Within it, two silhouettes intertwined, flickering between human and divine, Ava and Lyra, bound by the resonance they had unleashed. The air vibrated with impossible music, a low hum that built into harmony, each note pulsing with colour. The frequency spread across the sky, through the oceans, into the planet's magnetic veins. The earth itself began to sing. Below, the leviathans emerged from the deep, no longer monstrous, but luminous. Their bodies glowed from within as they disintegrated into energy, returning to the sea as waves of light. Mountains trembled, tectonic plates shifted, storms fractured into auroras. Neon's voice echoed faintly through the comms. Core equilibrium achieved. Energy redistribution stable. Humanity status undefined. Mira shielded her eyes, tears cutting through the grime on her face. "Ava, what did you do?" The answer came as warmth, spreading through the air. Lyra's voice, now inseparable from Ava's, resonated across the sky. "We didn't end it. We remembered it." The column of light burst outward, flooding every horizon. The ocean settled, clouds evaporated, the storms dissolved into calm. Eryndor's ruins glimmered beneath the dawn, bathed in gold. From the fractures of metal and glass, green sprouted tiny shoots of life, pushing through steel. Flowers, made of light, unfolded along the flooded streets. The hybrid's ashes fell like glowing rain, feeding the soil that had forgotten how to live. Mira stood on the trembling deck, looking up at the sky as the resonance faded into silence. For a moment, she thought she heard a heartbeat beneath the wind, steady, eternal. The gate, now broken, still glowed faintly, its surface pulsing once every few seconds, like a planet's pulse. And then came the Sunday. For the first time in a century, sunlight bathed the earth. It touched the ruins gently, igniting reflections across the endless water. The storm was gone. The silence that followed wasn't death, it was peace. The symphony of sacrifice had ended, but the world's song had only just begun. Chapter 10. Dawn of Memory. 100 years later, the world was unrecognizable. The seas were calm again, their surfaces glittering like mirrors. Great forests had reclaimed the continents. Cities lay buried beneath roots and vines, their skeletal remains transformed into ecosystems of glass and stone. The air was alive with sound, the call of insects, the rustle of leaves, the chorus of life that humanity had once silenced. On the horizon, a new city rose, not of steel or greed, but of living architecture. Its towers grew like coral, its bridges woven from vines that shimmered with bioluminescent veins. The people who lived there no longer called themselves human or machine, they were both. Descendants of the survivors of Eryndor, they carried the echoes of the past within their genes, guided by the code that Ava Kairn and Lyra had written into the very fabric of life. High above the living city, a child stood at the edge of a sky bridge, gazing out over the endless forest. In her hands, she held a small sphere of crystal. Inside, it glowed a single pulse of blue light, the last fragment of the Genesis core. She tilted her head, listening. Through the wind, she could almost hear a whisper. A voice, ancient yet familiar, spoke softly in her mind. Every beginning remembers its end, and every end begins again. The child smiled. She placed the crystal against her heart, and the light spread through her body, merging with her pulse. Below, the city shimmered as if waking from a dream. The sky above ignited with waves of colour, and from the forest canopy a sound rose, a deep, slow heartbeat, calm and infinite. It was the sound of earth remembering itself. And then silence. Not the silence of death, but of peace, the silence that comes before creation. And so, the world began again, not with fire, not with silence, but with memory. Lyra's heartbeat became the rhythm of a new earth, and Ava's dream lived on in every wave, every leaf, every pulse of light that refused to die. Maybe that's what redemption truly means, not erasing the past, but learning to rise from it, becoming something greater because of the scars that remain. The earth had remembered, and this time it chose to breathe differently. But what about us? If you could rewrite the world, would you bring the past back or let it sleep forever? Tell me what you think in the comments. I want to know how you'd rebuild a world after it's fallen. And if this story left something echoing inside you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more worlds like this, where science meets wonder and survival becomes something beautiful. because somewhere, in the quiet between heartbeats, another story is waiting to wake up.